Here I'm in the Leap browser and we can audition this sound. All right, sounds nice. And this is the tempo of my DAW. I have a drum loop playing in here. So a bit faster. Now I'm going to double click to load this, and it loads in group mode. This is a kit that has all 16 notes mapped out in group mode, and it'll automatically play back now at the tempo of my project. So let's say I'm going to play my drum groove and then trigger some of the notes. So that works great. Now we can quantize the start of when the loops and samples are going to start playing. When we hit the note on the keyboard, it can be off, which will start immediately, but we can quantize it to the nearest 32nd, 16th triplet, 16th note, etc. So if I go to 8th note, I don't have to worry about being exactly on. My notes will trigger at the next 8th note. 2, 3, 4. And they're automatically in tempo. Now, when we're on the edit page, and by the way, we can get to the edit page not just over here, but we can click on this icon and it'll toggle open the edit page based on the sample that we have selected. And once we're on the edit page, of course, this will update. So here we have this additional follow parameter. And when this is enabled, which it is by default, when I hit the note on my keyboard, it'll update and display the contents here. When this is off, I can still trigger the other samples, but it doesn't change the display. So this is great to have on if, let's say, I want to tweak one of the parameters, maybe in the sound engine, maybe the amp envelope. I want to tweak the same thing in all the parameters. I can just quickly go through each note and it'll update, and I can just keep my mouse there and trigger the different notes and adjust it. Now I'll just go back to the simpler play view for the moment. We can also adjust the start key. We can transpose this down to the F and then C above and below each octave, so you can use a different range on your keyboard if you want it to start lower. And then here, we can adjust the tuning and pitch of it. So this is defaulting to C minor. But I can click here and change the root note. We can even change it to major. And we have this tonality lock, so if we lock that, then the tonality can't be changed. Now, this ability for it to be transposed is dependent on, when we're on the edit page, in the engine page over here, that this global button has to be active. So you can turn this off for individual notes if you want. Like, for example, this is a drum loop. It's a shaker, so you might not want that transposed, so that is off. And the pitched material, you want that on. But you can customize which notes will and won't be transposed when we're using this tonality shifting function. So the purpose of locking this then is that when you're switching kits, it'll maintain this tuning, since that might be the key you're working in. So it stayed in E minor. Now we know the black notes act as the modifiers, and you can trigger them either with the mouse here or on your keyboard. And of course, that's where the fun comes in. So we know that we can click here to jump to the edit page. And that's a nice sample. What we can do also is when we hover the mouse over here to this keyboard icon, we can click here and that'll automatically map that note out into single mode across the whole keyboard, including the black keys. You can instantly create a playable instrument like that. So we can transpose by octave up or down here. And here we play chromatically by default, and it's mapped out and quantized to the tuning of this. But when scaled is on, it'll only allow the notes in this key and tonality to come through. So if I play notes outside of it, they won't be triggered. And of course, we can click there to get a different root note. And make it major if we want. And same thing with tonality lock. When we switch kits, it'll remain. And then back in group mode, like we saw in the last video, we can command click on Mac and control click on Windows. And in this context menu, we can duplicate a sample to the next slot and the edit window will automatically open. And that didn't happen right now when I did it because the next slot was occupied. But if I, let's say, for example, command click here and remove this one, you'll see the icon changes and it's empty. There's that bass sound. I can command click there and go duplicate. And now it'll copy all the settings into the next slot and I can modify it to have a slightly modified version of the same sample set, which can be useful depending on how you're working. Maybe you want to copy a loop across several keys and have each key trigger a different section of it. That's the keyboard section. We'll continue with more in the next video.